Hi, my dear friends. This is Vasilina Orlova with you today. And I want to record this video to share with you some quotes from the treatise by Seneca on the shortness of life. This is a very short work. It's basically that thick. It's like very thin, essentially. That is produced by Seneca, one of the Stoic philosophers, of course, incredibly influential philosopher who was being torn sort of by all sorts of people, not only philosophers, but psychologists and motivational coaches and stuff. A person who influenced about every development of anything, including, for instance, Christianity to the present days, incredibly influential speaker, and one of the most probably known names in Stoicism as well. So I wanted to take us to look into the source as far as it's possible for us, meaning, of course, we aren't reading it in the original language that it was written, and therefore we can only kind of touch upon a shadow of what was written, but it is still possible to turn to it. And I feel like Seneca is not any worse as many others, right, contemporary authors. And there is this whole idea of the finding solace in philosophy, and Seneca is definitely one of those philosophers where you can't find a lot of solace. So let me read these things that I selected for today for you to delve into them with you together right now. So Seneca is speaking about some of the people who are torn between the past that has already passed, obviously, the future that never arrives. The future is always in the future, right? And this tiny slither of contemporary moment of this only now where we can actually be and in which we can actually do something. He says that most of humanity, ordinary people, the wretches, as he calls them, us, right? Us mere mortals, they forget the past, neglect the present, and fear for the future. So we are in this layered, moment where we don't remember what happened in the past. We are experiencing the fear in front of the future, and we are also barely registering the present. He says they lose the day in expectation of the night, and the night in fear of the dawn. So I think what is interesting here and what we can definitely derive from this is the word expectation. So there is a word that is closely related to the future, the expectation of the future, the expectation of the night in particular. And obviously this is not said about this coming night or any, earthly night for that matter. It's probably more about the expectation of the end of everything, the expectation of death, and the expectation of that night there is some sort of darkness, the night that is coming to take something from you, whether it will be consciousness when you fall asleep, or your entire life and your entire existence, or just sort of deprivation and something that is going to take something from you, right? So, but when you are in the state, when you are at that night, when you feel like the darkness is coming and you are losing something, you are in this low mood, there is also something coming which is down, but then the down is also kind of dark. The down is feared. You spend this night in fear of the down. You are afraid what is coming next. I think this tells perfectly to us about our current situation in general, when we kind of live in the fear of whatever it is to come. And there are so many things that we've already been through as humans and the society and as individuals. And we are expecting that nothing better will come. We fear the down, we fear the tomorrow. I think this is what it is about. So Seneca says, all the greatest blessings are a source of anxiety, and at no time should fortune be less trusted than when it is best. So I think Seneca points out to us that even our wealth that we can attain and the goals that we can attain, such as having a family, for instance, right? Or for some parents is probably having a child, or for some people who want to attain a profession, be professionals, it is attaining that profession. It is attaining that goals, those professional goals that you set in front of you. It is attaining, maybe collecting some wealth again for yourself, right? It is, I don't know, what have you, it's buying of a house, right? These things that are the blessings that we would normally think of as blessings, and the things that make life worth living, the things that are happening and that are good, right? The acquisitions of all these things. I think what he's saying is that all the greatest blessings are a source of anxiety. Why this is the source of anxiety? Because it all brings the prospects of losing it all, right? If you are a parent, for instance, what can worse happen to a parent than the loss of a child? If you directed your every effort into attaining that wealth that you wanted to attain, you are constantly in fear of losing that wealth, or you have to do something about it to even keep it. And of course, for some of us, we are basically one bill away from a social catastrophe, one medical bill away from a social catastrophe, most of us probably in the contemporary world. But nevertheless, assuming you are, a very successful professional who is doing and has everything that you have, you must have some sort of anxiety, I'm guessing, about losing these things, right? So whatever blessings we can have in this life, as humans, as mortals, as people who live in this planet, in this day and time, we are always tormented by the anxiety that is coming precisely from our possessions and from our attainment of those things. And at no time should fortune be less trusted than when it is best, Seneca says. So basically pointing out again that such a thing as fortune is treacherous in a lot of ways. And I think what fortune generally meant, we will have to kind of do a separate investigation what fortune meant here, but speaking broadly, this is, of course, something that we would probably translate nowadays as luck. So it's probably paying homage to the fact that whatever abilities you have and whatever positions you have already attained, it's all also depending on a big number of circumstances. This is not somehow inherent in what you are or what you are doing, but that's basically the matter of luck to a degree. The fortune is this idea of, I think there must be even some goddess over there that represents fortune, but it's sort of a blessing that also can be taken away. Moreover, Seneca says, what is doomed to perish brings pleasure to no one. Very wretched, therefore, and not merely short, must the life of those who work hard to gain what they must work harder to keep. Must the life of those be who work hard to gain what they must work harder to keep. So basically, if what is doomed to perish brings pleasure to no one, then nothing brings pleasure to anybody, essentially, because everything is doomed to perish. There is nothing truly deathless. There is nothing truly for ages out there, except for maybe Seneca himself and his treatise. But even so, he is no longer living, right? He is no longer among us. He has nothing, no pleasure to derive from the fact that we are still reading him today. So very wretched, therefore, and not merely short, must the life of those be who work hard to gain what they must work harder to keep. So I think what that says is that we have already worked hard to attain all these things that we want for us in our society. It will be obviously a number of checklists that we need to mark in those boxes that we have check marked all of them, and we achieved that, and we worked obviously very hard to get there. But also, now that we have these things, we must work even harder to keep them. I think that is Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland or something, that episode when she is told that she must run twice faster to just stay on the same place. I think this is how many professionals and, in general, sort of people feel these days, that now when you attained all of that, you must work even harder to keep. You must pay off that mortgage that you took. You must, I don't know, work on those relationships you built, and there is nothing wrong with that, but it also can be very draining. It's not let's say, something that you achieved and that's all. You have to work even harder to keep it, right? By great toil, they attain what they wish, Seneca says, and with anxiety hold what they have attained. So this anxiety, the prospect of losing things. Meanwhile, they take no account of time that will never more return. So yes, we attain all these things. We are anxious about losing them. We must work even harder to keep them after we already worked hard to get them. And at the same time, we are so busy with that, and we keep ourselves so busy that we can have no account of time that will never more return. The time passes, we spend it busying ourselves in all these pursuits, and we never have the possibility, I guess, to just stop and kind of look at what it is that we are doing, maybe to even enjoy the moment. I don't know if that is here, but this is something how we can interpret that. But I think when it comes to time, early in the same treatise, Seneca also says that this claim to people that sometimes others give them, why are you idle unless you seize the day it flees, can be countered by, okay, even if I seize the day, it will still flee. That's what he says earlier in the same work. So therefore, that moment of time flies, you don't even have the opportunity to notice how it flies, is already counteracted by the same author who is saying to us, well, even if you are seizing the day, it still flies, even if you are doing what you have to do, I'm guessing you are still kind of losing the time. And that's a very dark philosophy, or it can be this very dark, almost bordering on nihilistic philosophy, almost bordering on, okay, well, in this sense, nothing makes sense, right? And nothing is that important. But at the same time, I feel like Stoicism in this particular rendition is also very liberating, because if we understand that what we want, and that is maybe not even attainable, is basically also a source of anxiety, and that if we get there, we are not automatically freed from ourselves, we are not automatically happier, we are not noticing time more, we are just endlessly kind of seizing the day, and the day it endlessly sifts through our fingers. I think it can be very liberating in this sense. And I also think that the Stoicism in this particular way, the way we read it right now, obviously there are multiple ways to read it, but it is in a certain contradiction with this post-Protestant ideology that basically tells us in the contemporary society, well, you must keep yourself busy, you must do something, you must attend this, this, and that. You must complete these several tasks in order to be even, an independent adult, or a person who is doing well by the standards of society, right? And of course, the standards are very different from everybody. It would depend on multiple factors, including the strata to which they belong, and sort of their referent circle, which might be very small, or it could, to the contrary, it could include some people who are not even here, but who we just kind of imagine by our social media or whatever. But this is kind of this is the philosophy of Stoicism. In this particular sense, I think stands in contradiction to this politics of attainment, and politics of fulfillment, and politics that tells you you have to have all of these things, you have to achieve, and you have to keep yourself busy. To the contrary, it sort of says, well, all attainment will result in you acquiring more and more anxiety in order to attain and in order to keep. So just something I wanted to tell you, to put it out there. I think that sometimes philosophy can be very, very remote, like it's almost not something that is a part of our day, because we can always turn to something more accessible that obviously stands on these sources. But it's also good sometimes to revisit these things, and this is just something I wanted to do with you today. And I hope you're having a great day, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in my next video.